There are profound secrets, truths so deeply embedded that for centuries they have been hidden beneath intricate layers of history and doctrine, patiently waiting for the precise moment to emerge into the light. Imagine for a moment a vital knowledge that was subtly yet systematically erased from sacred texts. An ancient teaching that might have once been an absolutely essential, foundational part of early Christianity, but was subsequently suppressed, diligently buried under numerous ecclesiastical decrees and powerful councils. What if I were to tell you that reincarnation, the profound and ubiquitous idea that our soul lives not just one, but multiple lives, may have once, in fact, inhabited the very pages of the Bible itself, a concept perhaps deliberately excised to shape the narrative of the burgeoning church? On today's illuminating journey, we will courageously traverse the intriguing shadows of history, revisit ancient texts that have been long overlooked or reinterpreted, and meticulously probe the pivotal decisions that ultimately shaped Christian thought into its current familiar form. Could it truly be possible that such a profound truth, a truth that resonates and echoes across so many diverse cultures and ancient spiritual traditions around the globe, was deliberately silenced, perhaps for reasons more political than theological? Open your mind and heart wide, and come with me as we endeavor to uncover this captivating, centuries-old mystery. The central, indeed tantalizing question we seek to answer is, was reincarnation, a concept so widely accepted in other spiritual frameworks, explicitly excluded from the Bible, and if so, why? To truly comprehend how the idea of reincarnation could possibly be connected to early Christianity, we must first open the doors of time and embark on a fascinating visit to ancestral civilizations. Long before Christ walked the earth and articulated his revolutionary teachings, the concept of reincarnation was already coursing vibrantly and ubiquitously through the hallowed halls of ancient temples, permeating the enlightened minds of wise men and philosophers, and forming an intrinsic and integral part of the secret rites observed by initiates in various mystery schools. This was not a fringe belief, but often a central pillar of cosmological understanding. Consider, for instance, the civilizations beneath the shifting sands of Egypt, where the majestic pyramids stood as silent, eternal witnesses, observing the relentless passage of time. Here, Egyptian priests assiduously guarded the profound mystery of the soul's return. To them, physical death was not an abrupt end, but rather a seamless transition, a natural passage from one stage of existence to another, a journey of continuation. The Book of the Dead, a revered collection of sacred Egyptian texts, meticulously describes how the soul journeys through the afterlife, undergoes judgment, and then possesses the inherent ability to be reborn into a new life, or to remain within designated spiritual realms, depending on its purification and alignment. The soul, in essence, was perceived not as a fleeting entity, but as an eternal traveler, destined to return as many times as deemed necessary to achieve ultimate harmony, spiritual balance, and a state of complete liberation. This cyclical view of existence was fundamental to their understanding of cosmic order. On the other side of the ancient world, along the fertile banks of the sacred Ganges River, another profound and influential vision of reincarnation blossomed and flourished. In the venerable Vedic texts of India, meticulously composed and transmitted orally around 1500 BCE, emerged the foundational concept of samsara, the endless, cyclical journey of birth, death, and eventual rebirth. This relentless cycle, according to these ancient Hindu scriptures, continues its intricate and often challenging dance until the soul finally liberates itself from all material attachments, desires, and the illusory grip of the physical world, thereby attaining moksha, a state of eternal liberation and ultimate spiritual freedom. The underlying idea was crystal clear and elegantly profound. The actions performed in one life, collectively known as karma, profoundly shape future existences, thereby establishing a continuous, unfolding journey of learning, ethical development, and spiritual refinement that culminates only in the radiant, transcendent state of enlightenment. However, perhaps one of the most intellectually complex and deeply philosophical approaches to reincarnation originated from the intellectual crucible of ancient Greece, a civilization renowned for its philosophical prowess. Pythagoras, the legendary philosopher and mathematician, meticulously taught his devoted disciples that the soul was inherently immortal and would be successively reborn into different forms, both human and animal. To him, each new life represented a fresh, invaluable opportunity for spiritual evolution and profound learning. Pythagoras fervently believed that the universe possessed an intricate divine order, a harmonious cosmos, and that reincarnation permitted the soul to ascend through this cosmic order, gradually purifying itself through experience until it finally reached a state of perfection or reunification with the divine. In his own profound words, the soul enters new bodies until it is fully purified, indicating a progressive journey. Plato, another colossal figure among Greek thinkers and a student of Socrates, unequivocally shared this timeless view, elaborating on it extensively. In his seminal work, Phaedo, Plato vividly recounts how his mentor, Socrates, firmly believed in the transmigration of souls and their continuous spiritual evolution across multiple lives. According to Plato's dialogues, pure souls, having learned their lessons and refined their essence, would ascend to higher, more ethereal realms, while those still requiring further learning, purification, and the expiation of past actions would inevitably return to earth to continue their arduous yet ultimately rewarding journey. In all these rich and diverse ancient traditions, from the mystics of Egypt to the philosophers of Greece and the sages of India, reincarnation was not merely seen as a theoretical spiritual reality, but rather as an essential tool for soul improvement. It was universally believed that each existence afforded a unique opportunity for learning, a fresh chance for profound moral development and spiritual growth, a mechanism for cosmic justice and personal refinement. Each life was perceived as a new unfolding page in the grand, intricate cosmic book of personal evolution, a continuous narrative of the soul's progression towards ultimate realization. Against this widespread backdrop of ancient acceptance and integration of reincarnation as a fundamental cosmic principle, a compelling and critical question arises. If so many ancient cultures and profound philosophies embraced reincarnation as a fundamental part of the life cycle and the process of spiritual advancement, how did Christianity, at least in its modern, formalized form, come to unequivocally reject it, often with strong condemnation? Or indeed, did it, in fact, once accept it, only for this truth to be deliberately obscured or purposefully excised from its foundational texts and doctrines? This historical anomaly demands closer scrutiny. In the turbulent first centuries after Christ's death, Christianity was far from the monolithic, uniformly organized religion we recognize today. Instead, it was a dynamic, diverse tapestry of communities, each possessing its own unique interpretation of Jesus' profound words and transformative teachings. There was no single officially sanctioned Bible, no universally accepted canon of Scripture, nor was there a central, hierarchical authority dictating rigid rules and dogmas across all congregations. There was only a deep and pervasive longing among early believers to understand the divine, to grasp the essence of existential questions, and to forge a meaningful path to spiritual salvation. As the vast Roman Empire expanded and Christianity began to emerge as a new and transformative faith, its earliest followers were remarkably far from adhering to the rigid orthodoxy that would later come to dominate the Church. In fact, many early Christians possessed a worldview that significantly diverged from the rigid doctrines and singular interpretations we commonly know today. It was a time of dynamic spiritual experimentation, of intense philosophical inquiry, where the ardent search for universal truths frequently transcended the limited boundaries and linear understanding of a single earthly life. The human soul was seen not as a transient entity bound to one physical existence, but as inherently eternal, not confined to a mere physical body. Consequently, the spiritual focus was not solely on the present life, with its earthly challenges and opportunities, but rather on the expansive, continuous journey of the soul through time, encompassing multiple incarnations. This expansive perspective naturally led many thoughtful early Christians to actively consider the profound possibility that, after physical death, the soul would indeed return to earth in a new form, as an intrinsic part of a continuous process of purification, ethical development, and spiritual evolution, a cyclical journey towards divine union. Among the most influential Christian thinkers and theologians of this formative period, Origen of Alexandria, c. 185, c. 254 AD, stands out as a prominent and articulate proponent of what we now understand as reincarnation, although he referred to it as the pre-existence of the soul. He was not merely a systematic theologian, but also a mystical philosopher, deeply influenced by the rich esoteric traditions of Egypt, the philosophical insights of Greece, and the spiritual wisdom of the Middle East. Origen firmly believed that the soul was not simply a temporary creation of God, brought into being at the moment of conception. Instead, he posited that it possessed an eternal origin, having existed before its embodiment, and that it traversed various cycles of life and death as part of a grander divine plan. In his most important and controversial work, De Principiis, On the Principles, Origen explicitly states that the human soul, after departing the body, would return to earth in a new incarnation until it achieved complete purification and ultimate alignment with the divine. For him, reincarnation was fundamentally a form of spiritual evolution, a pedagogical process ordained by divine wisdom. He argued that the soul, by passing through various lives, would progressively purify itself, refine its character, and shed its imperfections until it achieved perfect unity with the divine. A concept remarkably similar to the spiritual liberation, moksha, and enlightenment emphasized in Eastern philosophies. Origen did not perceive reincarnation as a punishment in the punitive sense, but rather as an ongoing, benevolent opportunity for profound learning, growth, and self-correction. He believed that diverse life experiences were absolutely necessary for the soul to perfect itself, to integrate divine wisdom, and that through these varied and sometimes challenging experiences, the soul would draw progressively closer to eternal wisdom and universal truth. He famously stated, "Each soul comes into the world strengthened by the victories or weakened by the defeats of previous lives, directly acknowledging the cumulative impact of past actions and experiences." The compelling idea that the choices, lessons, and even mistakes made in one life could profoundly influence future existences aligns seamlessly with the philosophy of cosmic justice and divine pedagogy that permeated so many ancient spiritual traditions. For Origen, this understanding of the soul's journey was not foreign or alien to the true essence of Christianity. On the contrary, he believed it was in perfect harmony with the fundamental idea of redemption, purification, and the progressive sanctification that Christ himself taught. After all, he might have reasoned, who better to truly understand eternity, divine justice, and the profound journey of spiritual transformation than a soul that had already passed through multiple cycles of existence, gathering wisdom and purifying its essence with each turn of the wheel. Throughout the early centuries following the foundational events of Christianity, the nascent faith gradually shaped itself, often by integrating diverse spiritual and philosophical thoughts, many of which echoed ancient traditions. Among numerous early Christian writings and theological discussions, reincarnation was indeed a topic of consideration and debate, albeit not unanimously accepted by all factions or regions. However, by the 6th century, a dramatic and profoundly impactful event took place that would irrevocably alter the course of Christian doctrine regarding this concept. The Second Council of Constantinople, a powerful ecclesiastical gathering convened with significant authority to reshape the very fabric of Christian theology, determined the ultimate fate of this doctrine, marking a definitive and indelible turning point in the religion's trajectory. The momentous decision to formally ban reincarnation from official Christian doctrines was not purely theological, driven solely by scriptural interpretation or doctrinal purity. It was, in fact, significantly and perhaps primarily political. Emperor Justinian III reigned 527–565 AD, a formidable and autocratic ruler, and his influential wife, Empress Theodora, spearheaded an orchestrated effort that would effectively eliminate the idea of multiple lives and, with it, the pervasive philosophical and spiritual perspectives of continuous spiritual evolution that transcended the confines of a single lifetime. Emperor Justinian was not a man who tolerated dissent or doctrinal fragmentation within his vast sprawling empire. For him, consolidating Christianity under a single unified set of doctrines was absolutely essential, not only for the perceived integrity and purity of the faith itself, but also, and perhaps more importantly, to maintain unwavering political and social order within his dominion. Reincarnation, with its profound implications of multiple lives and the concept of spiritual self-sufficiency, where salvation could be attained through continuous self-improvement across lifetimes, undeniably posed a significant challenge to the centralized authority of the burgeoning Church. The Church, under imperial patronage, increasingly sought to establish and maintain absolute control over the soul's destiny and the exclusive path to its redemption, positioning itself as the sole mediator of divine grace. With his politically astute and remarkably resolute wife Theodora by his side, Justinian convened the Second Council of Constantinople in 553 AD. This council became an undeniable landmark, a veritable watershed moment in Christian history. With the formidable backing of ecclesiastical leaders who were closely allied with imperial power and often dependent on imperial favor, Justinian skillfully wielded the council as a potent tool to establish a uniform and unchallengeable doctrine, crushing dissenting theological viewpoints. The Council of Constantinople gathered bishops and theologians from various regions, especially from the Christian East, though there were also some notable representatives from the West. Key figures present included Patriarch Eutychius of Constantinople, who presided over the council, and Bishop Vigilius of Rome, who initially resisted certain imperial directives and decisions, but ultimately yielded to immense imperial pressure, demonstrating the overwhelming secular influence. The eradication of reincarnation from official Christianity was indeed far from a purely theological matter. Reincarnation presented a powerful and potentially subversive idea. It implied that each soul was inherently responsible for its own spiritual evolution, and that through a succession of multiple lives, the soul could gradually achieve the purity necessary to unite with the divine. This perspective could significantly distance ordinary people from the perceived immediate need for a single mediating institution, the Church, to secure their salvation. Control over the destiny of the soul was, in fact, one of the most effective and powerful ways to ensure the Church's paramount authority and enduring influence over its millions of believers. If people firmly believed they only had one singular life to secure their eternal salvation, the urgency to rigorously follow Church teachings, perform prescribed rituals, and adhere to clerical authority increased dramatically, ensuring adherence and loyalty. Reincarnation, on the other hand, offered a path for the soul to evolve and refine itself independently across multiple lives and potentially outside of a singular controlling ecclesiastical institution, thus diminishing the Church's exclusive role. Justinian keenly understood that a church united under one unwavering doctrine would significantly strengthen his empire's political cohesion and central power. By strategically removing the doctrine of reincarnation from official Christian doctrine, he effectively reinforced the immediate and urgent need to seek salvation without concessions, and always through unquestioning obedience to the clergy and the now official teachings of the Church. This consolidated both spiritual and temporal power. Theodora, Justinian's wife, played a particularly significant and personal role in influencing the exclusion of reincarnation from Christian doctrine. Her motivations were deeply personal, rooted in her own life experiences. Before her ascension to the throne, Theodora's life had been marked by poverty and the pervasive social stigma associated with her past as an actress and prostitute. These deeply formative experiences instilled in her a profound and enduring fear of being reborn into a new life, fraught with similar hardships, social disgrace, and suffering. This intense personal fear, combined with Justinian's overarching desire to unify Christian doctrine and relentlessly strengthen the Church's power as the sole, indispensable mediator of salvation, powerfully promoted the view that each person had only one singular life to secure the eternal destiny of their soul. Justinian explicitly ordered that the doctrine of reincarnation be unequivocally deemed heretical. The political pressure exerted was so immense and pervasive that even the most resistant voices among the clergy eventually, and perhaps reluctantly, accepted the imperial decision, whether out of sheer fear of reprisal or strategic convenience in maintaining their positions. In the end, Origen, a brilliant early Christian theologian whose ideas had once been widely debated, was officially declared a heretic posthumously, and his profound ideas on the pre-existence of the soul and its journey through multiple lives were deemed fundamentally incompatible with official Christian doctrine. Those who attempted to perpetuate his ideas were severely threatened with excommunication and marginalization from the Church. The condemnation of Origen and the explicit banishment of reincarnation were formally sealed by a document meticulously detailing the anathemas against Origen, thereby formally exiling this belief from official Christianity for centuries to come, fundamentally reshaping its theological landscape. For many devout believers, the Bible is regarded as the unchanging, inerrant Word of God, infallible and immutable in its entirety. But could its sacred pages, upon closer scrutiny, contain subtle hints of a profound truth that was deliberately obscured or reinterpreted over the centuries by human hands? What if the concept of reincarnation was, in fact, an essential, though perhaps esoteric, teaching of early Christianity, only to be later excluded by powerful church authorities for political and doctrinal expediency? In various passages throughout the Scriptures, there are verses that strongly suggest the possibility of the soul's cyclical return, verses that have often been conveniently reinterpreted or deliberately set aside to conform to the prevailing official dogma of a single life and a linear progression to heaven or hell. Consider, for instance, Matthew 17:10-13, which provides one of the most commonly cited examples among those who argue for the latent presence of reincarnation in the Bible. After the profound experience of Jesus' transfiguration, the disciples, reflecting on ancient prophecy, inquire about the foretelling that Elijah would come before the Messiah. To this, Jesus enigmatically replies, "Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they pleased." Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them of John the Baptist. This mysterious and direct, Answer from Jesus powerfully suggests that John the Baptist was, in essence, a reincarnation of Elijah, embodying his spirit and role to prepare the way for Christ in accordance with ancient prophecy. For early Christians, who were often more steeped in diverse spiritual currents than commonly assumed today, this response likely held a clear and unmistakable meaning. Reincarnation, or at least the transmigration of prophetic spirits, was an accepted part of the spiritual understanding of that era, a reality they readily comprehended. Jesus does not hesitate to affirm that the prophetic spirit of Elijah has returned in the form of John, as if it were a readily accepted and understood reality among his devoted followers, requiring no further explanation or correction of a mistaken belief. Another equally intriguing and often debated passage appears in John 9:1-25, where the disciples, upon seeing a man born blind, immediately ask Jesus a startling question. "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" This pointed question, rather than being dismissed by Jesus, seems to directly suggest that the disciples believed the man might have sinned in a previous existence, that is, in a past life, and that his current affliction was a consequence of those actions. If the concept of reincarnation were entirely foreign or utterly unthinkable within the Judaic Christian context of that time, this question would make absolutely no logical sense whatsoever. It would be utterly out of place. The disciples' query appears to indicate an inherent understanding that the soul could possess a history of actions extending beyond this current physical life, and that these past actions might logically explain the man's condition at birth. Significantly, Jesus does not correct or refute this underlying assumption about past lives. Instead, he expands upon it, indicating that the man's blindness in this particular instance is not due to past sin, but is specifically an opportunity for the miraculous works of God to be revealed through healing. This profound dialogue implicitly implies a foundational understanding that the soul could indeed carry previous experiences and karmic imprints that manifest in the present. Furthermore, in John 3:7, we find another compelling exchange where Jesus tells Nicodemus, a prominent Jewish religious leader, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." Nicodemus, visibly confused by this seemingly paradoxical statement, asks how this could possibly be. How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? Jesus, however, is clearly not speaking of a literal physical rebirth, but rather speaks of a profound spiritual birth as a second life, a complete transformation of one's inner being. While this rebirth is often interpreted in mainstream Christianity as a metaphor for spiritual renewal or conversion in one lifetime, some scholars persuasively argue that it could also be a veiled yet clear reference to a cycle of successive lives that bring continuous spiritual learning and purification, echoing the cyclical journey of the soul. Nicodemus, being a religious leader and well-versed in spiritual concepts and ancient traditions, clearly understood that Jesus was speaking of a profound mystery, something far deeper than a mere physical rebirth. The literal interpretation of returning to the mother's womb does not align with the profound depth of Jesus' message, which is explicit in saying that this new birth is the crucial key to profound spiritual evolution, a concept that could very easily and harmoniously align with the idea of being reborn across multiple lives, gradually refining the soul's essence until it fully comprehends and enters the kingdom of God. These passages, when viewed through a lens unconstrained by later doctrinal prohibitions, offer tantalizing glimpses into a broader spiritual understanding that may have once been more prevalent in early Christian thought. The doctrine of reincarnation, though systematically suppressed and marginalized in various Western traditions for centuries, has remarkably resurged with compelling strength and widespread acceptance in modern spirituality. It has emerged as a powerful answer to humanity's ongoing search for deeper meaning, greater purpose, and, above all, a more comprehensive understanding of our very existence within the cosmos. In an increasingly fast-paced, technologically driven world, where the intense pressure for instant gratification and immediate achievement often overshadows the slow, profound, and often arduous process of inner growth, the idea of multiple lives emerges as a comforting antidote. It offers a path of continuous learning, spiritual progression, and inexorable soul evolution, providing a framework for meaning and hope that extends far beyond the limited confines of a single, finite lifetime. For contemporary spirituality, reincarnation is not merely a dry, abstract theological notion of what happens after physical death. It is, more dynamically, a living and insightful framework through which to truly understand the multifaceted and often challenging human experience. It suggests that each life we embody is a unique and precious opportunity for profound growth, a fresh chance for purification, healing, and invaluable learning that brings us progressively closer to our true, authentic, and divine self. Instead of exclusively seeking salvation or ultimate fulfillment in a single finite life, as official Christian dogma conventionally teaches, reincarnation offers a more compassionate, patient, and expansive view of soul development. This perspective profoundly differs from the binary concept of eternally burning in hellfire or perpetually resting in heaven based on the actions of one brief life, offering a more nuanced and just understanding of spiritual progression. The notion of reincarnation was effectively reintroduced and gained traction in the West, primarily through increased intellectual and cultural contact with Eastern thought, especially the rich philosophical and spiritual traditions of Hinduism and Buddhism, where reincarnation, samsara, and rebirth is a central and fundamental idea. Influential philosophers like Alan Watts, revered spiritual leaders such as the Dalai Lama, and enlightened gurus like Swami Vivekananda played pivotal roles in popularizing and elucidating this belief for Western audiences. They consistently emphasize that the cyclical process of birth, death, and rebirth is fundamentally a process of liberation, self-discovery, and profound self-awareness, leading to an eventual transcendence of suffering. According to these ancient traditions, a person's volitional actions, their karma, not only profoundly shape their current life experiences, but also directly influence the conditions and lessons of their future lives, thereby fostering a deep understanding of personal responsibility, ethical conduct, and the inherent interconnectedness among all sentient beings. Over time, this expansive and holistic perspective found fertile ground in the West, appealing to those seeking deeper answers. Concepts like rebirth and karma, once seen as exotic or alien, became foundational principles for deep personal reflection and ethical living, bringing forth a renewed and more expansive understanding of life's purpose and the soul's enduring journey. Beyond purely philosophical or theological discourse, reincarnation has also gained intriguing and often compelling support within the realm of modern psychology, particularly within the burgeoning field of transpersonal psychology. Researchers like Dr. Ian Stevenson, 1918-2001, a distinguished psychiatrist and former professor at the University of Virginia, devoted decades of his rigorous academic career to meticulously studying documented cases of children who reported astonishingly detailed and verifiable memories of past lives. These methodical and painstaking studies often revealed remarkable empirical evidence, where young children from diverse parts of the world described specific facts about deceased individuals they had never met, recalling precise details such as names, places, familial relationships, and circumstances of death, which were subsequently verified with astounding accuracy through meticulous historical research. Furthermore, past life regression practices, popularized by esteemed therapists and authors like Dr. Brian Weiss, author of Many Lives, Many Masters, suggest that exploring presumed experiences from previous lives under hypnosis can profoundly help individuals resolve deep-seated traumas, persistent phobias, and chronic emotional blockages that appear to have no discernible origin in the current life. Rather than viewing reincarnation solely as a philosophical concept or a religious dogma, transpersonal psychology actively explores the compelling possibility that we may indeed carry residues of past life experiences, and that these memories, whether fully conscious or residing in the unconscious depths of the psyche, significantly impact our present psychological makeup, behaviors, and overall well-being. Reincarnation thus remains one of humanity's great existential questions, a profound mystery that simultaneously provokes profound curiosity, inspires spiritual inquiry, and at the same time challenges our deepest, most ingrained beliefs about life, death, and eternity. For some, the idea of multiple lives represents a crucial key that unlocks doors to expansive spiritual understanding and continuous personal growth, suggesting that the soul, much like an eternal pilgrim, is perpetually seeking its own ultimate truth and evolution. For others, it remains a belief that does not align with their current perception of what it means to be human and to exist, something that appears so distant from what the mainstream Christian tradition officially bequeathed to us. Regardless of one's personal position or current belief on this intricate and ancient topic, reincarnation is ultimately not a doctrine to be accepted or rejected blindly, without critical thought or introspection. Instead, it gently yet powerfully invites each individual to seek within themselves what truly resonates with their inner being, to engage in personal inquiry, to find answers that illuminate their unique path, and ultimately to bring forth profound inner peace and a deeper understanding of existence. In the grand tapestry of cosmic existence, whether our individual essence is part of an eternal cycle of rebirths, steadily progressing towards ultimate realization, or represents a unique, singular breath upon the earth, what truly matters most is not the presumed destination, but profoundly how we live here and now. What genuinely counts, what truly leaves an indelible mark, is whether we are living each moment with profound purpose, unwavering compassion, deep responsibility, and a heart overflowing with boundless love and connection to all of creation. Thank you for watching.